My name is Margot Hayes, a 66-year-old woman whose life was shattered in one unforgettable moment. At my husband Ernest's funeral, the silence weighed heavier than grief itself. Then, standing by his grave, my phone buzzed with a message that froze my blood. I am still alive. Trust no one. I stared at my phone, my hands trembling so violently I could barely keep my grip. I am alive. Trust no one. The words glowed on the screen like a dagger piercing my soul. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. My husband, Ernest, had just been buried. I had seen his body lowered into the ground, covered in soil, and yet, this message insisted he was not in the casket. My heart thundered as I turned to look at my sons, Charles and Henry, who stood stiffly near the pastor. Their expressions were unreadable, too calm for such a devastating day. Something inside me twisted. Could it be true? Could Ernest really still be alive? And if so, why would he warn me not to trust our own children? That night, sleep never came. I sat at the edge of my bed, replaying every detail of the past weeks. Ernest's so-called accident at the shop, the rushed funeral arrangements Charles insisted on, Henry's constant muttering about expenses while I was drowning in grief. None of it added up. The following morning, I returned to Ernest's workshop. The police report said a machine had exploded. But when I stepped inside, the air smelled only faintly of oil and metal. No scorch marks, no broken equipment. The machine stood lined up neatly, untouched. My knees weakened. What explosion? The place looked as if Ernest had just stepped out for lunch. I moved toward his desk, the one he had kept locked all these years. With shaking hands, I pulled open the drawer. Inside lay a small envelope, addressed to me in his familiar handwriting. Margot, if you find this, something has gone terribly wrong. My breath caught as I unfolded the paper. Charles insists I take out more insurance. Henry keeps pushing me to sign papers I don't understand. I feel trapped. If anything happens to me, don't believe what they tell you. Please be careful. I love you. Tears blurred my vision. Ernest had known. He had sensed something dark long before I had. My hands clutched the letter to my chest, as though it were his heartbeat. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Another message. Check the bank statements. You'll see the truth. I rushed to the local bank where Ernest and I had kept our modest savings. Mrs. Thompson, the kindly manager who had known us for decades, greeted me with watery eyes. Oh, Margot. Ernest was a good man. Please, I whispered. I need to see the account activity. When she handed me the statements, my blood ran cold. Thousands of dollars had been withdrawn in recent months, money I had never touched. The signatures on the slips looked shaky, unlike Ernest's usual strong hand. Who came to make these withdrawals? I asked, my voice breaking. Mrs. Thompson frowned. Your husband came in, but now that I think about it, Charles was with him more than once. He said Ernest needed help reading the paperwork, but Ernest never needed help. His eyes had been sharp, even at 70. My stomach knotted. My son had guided his father into signing away our savings. When I returned home, my phone vibrated again. The insurance was their idea. They planned it. Don't let them trick you. I sank into my chair, clutching the phone, the letter, the bank slips. Everything pointed to the same horrifying truth. Ernest had been right not to trust them. My sons were hiding something unspeakable. And if they had betrayed their father, what would they do to me? I wiped my tears and whispered into the empty room. Ernest, I'll find the truth. I promise. The next morning, the world outside seemed unchanged. Birds sang, children laughed on their way to school. But inside me, everything had shifted. I could no longer look at Charles and Henry with the same eyes. They weren't simply grieving sons anymore. They were suspects. When Charles knocked on my door that afternoon, his smile felt like a mask. He carried a stack of papers and spoke with an unusual gentleness. "Mom, we need to think about your future. The house is falling apart. With Dad gone, it's too much for you alone. If we sell, we could get you into a nice retirement community. Retirement community." The phrase sliced through me like glass. Ernest's letter echoed in my mind. "Don't believe what they tell you." My hands trembled as I pretended to skim the papers. Insurance documents, transfer agreements, all designed to strip me of everything Ernest and I had built together. I forced a smile. "Let me think it over." That night, another message lit up my phone. "Meet me tomorrow. Corner Cafe. 3 p.m. My name is Stephen. Ernest trusted me. I didn't sleep a wink. At 2:30 the next day, I walked into the cafe, my pulse racing. At the back table sat a tall man in his 50s, gray at the temples, eyes sharp but kind. He slid a folder across the table. "Mrs. Hayes, I'm Stephen Callahan. Ernest hired me weeks before his death. He feared your sons were plotting something." I opened the folder with shaking fingers. Inside were photographs, Charles entering a hardware store, leaving with a small bottle, receipts for methanol, and then an audio recorder. Stephen pressed play. Ernest's voice filled the air. "If anything happens to me, it won't be an accident. Charles and Henry have been pressing me about insurance. They keep asking about my routine. I'm afraid." Tears streamed down my face as I clutched the recorder. "My God! He knew!" Stephen nodded gravely. "And there's more." He clicked again. This time, Charles's voice. "We can't wait any longer. Dad is suspicious. The methanol will make it look like a stroke. Mom won't be a problem. She'll believe whatever we say." The cafe spun around me. My own son's voice, cold and calculating, plotting his father's murder. "We need to take this to the police," Stephen urged. That night, I sat across from Sergeant O'Connell at the station. The evidence spread out on his desk. His face darkened as he listened to the recordings, flipped through the bank slips, and read Ernest's letter. "This is enough to open a full investigation," he said. "But we'll need to exhume Ernest's body to confirm the poisoning." I closed my eyes, pain washing over me. "Do it." Whatever it takes. By dawn, the warrants were signed. The police raided both Charles and Henry's homes. My phone buzzed furiously as they called me, but I didn't answer. Instead, I waited in silence until Sergeant O'Connell knocked on my door. "They're in custody," he said simply, "charged with first-degree murder." Relief and devastation crashed together inside me. My sons, my flesh and blood, had killed their father. They had tried to destroy me too, but justice was finally catching up. That evening, alone in the quiet of my kitchen, I whispered into the stillness, "Ernest, we did it. They can't hurt us anymore." For the first time since the funeral, I felt him close, as if his spirit had leaned over my shoulder, proud of me for finding the truth. The battle wasn't over, but I had chosen my side, not as a grieving widow, not as a broken mother, but as a woman who refused to be silenced. Thank you so much for listening and supporting me through this emotional journey. I truly look forward to reading all of your thoughtful comments and hearing your personal reflections. On the screen now, you'll find 2 more life stories that I know you'll enjoy just as much. There's so much more waiting for you on this channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you again in the next story.